Okay, good day, class. So, this is a recorded session. This is a continuation of the previous topics we have discussed last session. So, last session we have discussed about the theories which are related or are adjudged with juvenile delinquency, and some are those to include the following, and some are from the anomy theory, which again, anomy is the breakdown of social norms, for short, normlessness of society. Some others are attributed to strain theory by Robert King Merton. Others came from the theory of the frustration aggression theory. Yan. So today we would be discussing about the behavior of juvenile delinquents. So, behavior of juvenile delinquents, there are different behaviors which are attributed from those theories and attributed from different factors such as the educational attainment, the environment in which the juvenile lives in, the influence he has, not just from his parents but also from his peers, and also other actions, other behaviors which were created and were acquired from different sources and factors within the society. So, first of those are attributed to those behavioral disorders in which those juvenile delinquents manifest throughout the course of their childhood days up until their adolescent ages. So, they manifest any of the following common behavioral disorders. First, antisocial disorder, characterized by disrespect or disobedience to authority. Commonly, those juveniles who commit crimes, who commit violations, or who commit misdemeanors regularly, if not all of them, have the same reason of defying authority or disregarding authority's presence. So, kumbaga, yung mga kabataan, for example, yung mga mahilig na mag-riot or those who are part of gangs who commit delinquent behaviors especially at night, kasagaran sa ilang mga rason aside from those gang-to-gang conflicts is that they do not regard authority as a superior organization, or they not even regard authority or those law enforcers as people who are worthy of respect. Yan. So it's anti the norms or against the norms of society. And not just from authority but also from elderly or for those much elder adults. Yan. Ginadisregard nila ang mga sinasabi ng mga matatanda even though that those people wanted to maintain the peace as much as the law enforcers. But because of the predominance of an antisocial behavior or antisocial behaviors within them, which they have developed as a group, then they would soon manifest those, would share those towards others. Next is lying. So lies indicate needs which require attention. Commonly, ang mga kabataan, they lie, especially during adolescent period, in order to satisfy their hedonistic tendencies or yung isatisfy yung kanilang pleasure, whether it be a material thing, whether it be monetary gain, or whether it is any other advantage which they can take upon. Most, if not some of them, would lie whether to their parents or whether to authorities, for example, in order to escape responsibilities or even acquire things which originally are acquired legally. Yan, nagsisinungaling sila. And there are underlying reasons which, as stated by researchers, by psychologists, or those psychological criminologists, there are underlying reasons in which yung mga factors na ito, itong mga factors na ito, could be one of the deeper roots or reasons in which those juvenile delinquents lie, especially when they are confronted with a dilemma or a problem. So first, commonly those adolescents, especially kanang mga delinquents na nasa gawas permente, they are longing for love. Hindi yung shallow love, but deeper love. And of course, understanding, especially from the family. Because most of them, if not all of them, have broken families or either families which do not really give enough attention to them. And because their families, whether it may be broken or whether those families disregard other members of the families, then the attention is depleted. Nawawala yung attention sa kanila. Yung kinakailangan na attention nila simula sa pagkabata. Common problem with families who are poor families and have a large number of members, yung mga pamilyang nasa laylayan pero napakaraming mga anak. Obviously, attention would be diminished or mas kakaunti ang attention ng bawat isang anak. Na, for example, na isa ka magtiayon, 8 o siya ang ilang anak. And because the father is just a construction worker, yung mama nagraraket lang, then those children would have different attention phases, would have different levels of attention to themselves. Hindi lahat ng panahon na kinakailangan nila ng guidance or kinakailangan nila ng attention ay nabibigay sa kanila. Especially on those critical periods, especially sa early childhood up until sa adolescence period kung saan doon na mold yung decision making and responsibility ng kabataan. The same goes with developing a better judgment on which is right and which is wrong. So yung attention and even the praise which they needed to motivate themselves, nawawala. Neither because the parents are busy or because sa sobrang dami nila sa pamilya, yung kinakailangan na attention, which is of course, a part of it is giving praise to either the accomplishment of the child or motivating him, nawawala. Also, security. Of course, when you are a child, you really need your parents to provide for you, to provide for the daily living, especially food, shelter, yan, clothing, probably, and security. Kumbaga, you are much more secured with your family, with your parents, and if your parents does not even give you the right amount of attention, hindi naman yung everyday, hindi naman yung every moment, pero yung attention na kinakailangan ng bata sa paglaki, pag hindi yan nabibigay, then of course, the child would feel that parang walang pake ang mga magulang ko. Also, yung sense of security, sense of being secured ng isang bata, eh, nawawala. The same goes with respect. Of course, every person who feels that respect and praise is lost to them, of course, yung happiness, yung natural na kasiyahan ng kabataan, mawawala. It may be because of family problems or environmental problems. Once happiness is taken out of the mindset of the child, especially during those critical periods up until adolescence, then they would not feel that they deserve to live as early as that. Kumbaga, mas napasubo ng mas maaga yung kabataan sa problema na actually it must not be put into the shoulders of children. There are challenges in this world na must be taken as a growing or stepping stone, hindi yung biglang napasubo. Because normally children could not carry the burden or would somehow falter or titiklop na lang. And of course, if the parents blatantly or yung obviously hindi nila ina-accept yung existence ng anak nila, siguro sa sobrang dami, hindi nila napansin na nawawalan yung attention nila sa bawat anak nila to the point na pati yung mismong existence ng bata hindi nila tanggap. That is also one of those underlying reasons na every time na pinakpagalitan ng magulang yung bata, may halong mga salitang hindi dapat marinig ng bata. Yan. Mamalikas ug tama ang nanay na, or ang papa or ilang abuso ng ilang anak. Tungod kay wala nila nadawat na sila anak. And of course, dahil siguro sa mga pagkakamali ng matanda, sa sobrang dami ng mga anak nila, nahirapan na silang ma-maintain o mabigyan ng sustento yung bawat isa. Okay? Next of it, dito, stealing. Of course, this is the basic misdemeanor or the basic criminal behavior that would be stemming out or would be created especially from children. Yan. Because maybe most of those children who would divest themselves to stealing came from undisciplined environments. The moral values that were taught to them were lacking, or if not lacking, walang morals na tinuturo sa bahay. Yan. And because even if ang basic education is somehow free in public schools, pero dahil yung mga magulang nila walang masustento or para sa kanila dahil yung pera o yung kanilang ipon o yung kanilang sweldo para lang maitawid yung pangkain nila sa pang-araw-araw would result to them not even going to school even on basic education. So yung morals na pwede naman sana mabigyan ng alternative sa eskwelahan, nawawala dahil hindi naman sila nakakapag-aral. And because there are no morals or there is somehow loose morals inside the house or inside the home, then they would think of being instinctive in order for them to survive at an early age. Of course, stealing, generally it is originating from the want of acquiring something. Yan. Dahil siguro sa kasalatan sa pera, yan, or it can be attributed to parental indifference, especially to those parents who have conflicts with each other. Yan. Magkakaiba ng prinsipyo or magkakaiba ng pangunawa sa isa't isa. Some of them would result to breaking up. Yan. Would result into a broken family. And because there is a split attention to the child, which could result to the child developing a criminal behavior. Early signs of it, yun, yung bata mas nagkakaroon ng Sama pagkainis pag wala siyang natatanggap. Yan. Children who would create tantrums when they cannot achieve or receive something they want and would create severe tantrums, yan, it must be controlled because it might result to the child satisfying his needs or his wants. He would resort to stealing things. Yan. Once it is not monitored by the parents, undisciplined pleasure seeking would somehow evolve from the child. Yan. Especially to those families with not much. Of course, clothing or even hygiene is diminished. May iba sa kanila na sa sobrang hirap ng panahon or sa sobrang hirap ng kanilang pamilya, pati ba naman yung pananamit kailangan pang pulutin sa basurahan. And because they cannot sustain daily lives because somehow napakahirap at hindi man lang nakapag-aral yung kanilang mga magulang rin, even providing for those basic materials for everyday living is a challenge. Yan. So somehow they would resort to stealing. Kasi wala sila nun eh. And because they seen others from the society na merong ganun, na natural lang sa tao na masuya, pero to the point sa kanila na ang pagkasuya, uncontrollable. Wala na disiplina. And also, clearly, it would resort to committing behavior which is against the norms of society. Next is truancy. This is the cutting of classes without any reasonable cause, commonly brought by an attractive school life. Siguro pag pasok nila sa eskwelahan, yan, binubuli na sila. Either through physical reasons, yan, meron silang physical defects, or baka, binubuli sila dahil lampa or mahina sila, or dahil mahirap sila. Yan. Commonly, in third world countries, it is a combination of originating from poor families and somehow having certain physical defects, which makes a child in school be at risk of being bullied. Yan. And somehow, it would make a perception or magbibigay yan ng pananaw sa bata na ayaw na niyang mag-aral, ayaw na niyang pumasok sa eskwelahan dahil binubuli siya. Ginagawa siyang laruan. Pinaglalaruan na lang siya ng kapwa niya mag-aaral. There are also certain factors which involves the fear of punishment, either from other students who would bully him or her, or fear of punishment from the moderators or the teachers. Yan. Siguro takot magkamali. Actually, it is not really a grave wrong if you commit a mistake because mistakes are always stepping stones. Yeah. And of course, when you are in childhood phase or early childhood phase, committing mistakes is the normal because it is better to commit mistakes early than to commit it at a late period. Some other reasons of truancy or cutting classes is proximity or close proximity to places where vices or distractions could indulge or attract those children in schools to get out of the class. Yan, for example, ngayon, yung mga kabataan ayaw pumasok sa paaralan or nagka-cut ng class dahil mayroong malapit na internet cafe or may malapit na bilyaran. Yan, naglalaro sila. In order to remove their worries, to remove pressure of daily living, maglalaro na lang sila to temporarily remove those fears, to remove those worries. The thing with vices kasi, there's a chance of losing. And all vices are temporary, just like everything else in this world. Kung mananalo ka sa internet cafe, maglalaro ka ng Dota, maglalaro ka ng COD or ano ba yung laro nyo. At the end of the day, hindi naman ikaw yung nandun. At the end of the day, you're still the same. Whether you win how many ranked games, whether you win how many much more games you win in billiards, yan. At the expense of cutting your classes. Understandable naman lahat tayo duman sa pagkabata. Yeah, for me personally, I tried cutting classes when I was in grade school. Uso pa sa una tong Call of Duty na siguro tong una, Call of Duty 2. Nya tong sikat na po tong Dota 1. Nya tong Counter Strike. Yan. Run Online, CF. Nilalaro ko yan. To the point na I've even lived inside the internet cafe. But then reality struck me na nakita ko na whether I like it or not, going to classes is better than playing all day. Kasi in the future, if you just play all day, then anong mangyayari sa buhay mo? Laro na lang, umaasa ka sa tsansa na makakaswerte ka. I've learned it from a very harsh standpoint na yung buhay, especially pag mag-aaral ka or you're still going in school, is that life is not really a matter of luck. People became successful, people become great because they push themselves na walang swerte-swerte sa mundo. You need to work hard and work smart for it. Yan. Kasi yung mga vices, yung mga bisyo, yung mga laro, temporary lang yan. Ika nga, ginailad ramo ana. Sa ngayon, binabayaran nila yung mga game streamers for how many views they have online. Nothing wrong with it, but still you need to focus on your studies, especially when you are still at school. It is good kung mabalanse mo yung paglalaro pati pag-aaral. Pero paano pag pati yung pag-aaral mo sinasakripisyo mo para lang maglaro? With the uncertainty of winning every game. Yan. Samot na kumopildi ka. What if you lose? Diba? Say, basolo ni mo keyboard, basolo ni mong mouse, basolo ni mo yung mga kauban. Diba? And all of those are happening while you are cutting classes. While you're committing truancy. Yan. And it's much worse if you cut classes, go to those places of vices, yan, and then commit much severe crimes. Na mangawat mo or you inflict violence. Ma makig-away mo, subaganay mo, na, or much worse, you would get killed because of that violence while cutting classes. Noon sa na lang tanaw na sa imong mga ginikanan. You know the truth with violence as a result or end result of truancy, at the end of, sabihin natin, 40 days, the reality kasi, after 40 days, tapos na yung iyakan. People would forget you. Do you think pag mamatay yung bata, habang buhay na lang na lahat ng tao makikialam sa kanya? No. So, as early as that stage, children, including those secondary parents, which are the teachers at school, must monitor the children, must guide them on an individualized basis in order to remove them or take away those perceptions that school is useless. Even though the richest people in this world haven't finished college, but because in our country, sa Philippines, it is very important that you have to finish your school or finish attending school, because when you have finished it, you have much more weapons, you have much more confidence to face the real life. Kaysa tinood lang ang tinood na kinabuhi, especially when you are already working, it's very harsh, it's very fast. And those children, especially elementary and high school periods, hindi nila alam yung consequences severely. 'Di ba? Walang nagsisisi na nasa una. Walang pagsisising nauna. So, as much as possible, parents and teachers must talk to those children, especially those children who are at risk of being influenced or at risk of being inflicted with violence, to guide them and also to remove those threats to them, and also understand those children and push those children in order for them to have a better mindset. Next, next is vagrancy. This is the wandering away from home. Presumably, the reasons of this are yung family condition sa bahay. Maraming kabataan na ayaw umuwi, ayaw magpondo sa bahay dahil siguro hindi nila nagugustuhan yung tinatawag na atmosphere, yan, yung vibe sa bahay. Either because of their parents, either because of their siblings, or it's because it seems for them na toxic ang bahay. Not really the house itself, pero yung atmosphere sa bahay, toxic para sa kanila. Which they would resort to wandering away from home or pumunta sa mga barkada nila, mga kaibigan nila, at gumawa ng kahit anong gusto nila. Yan. The main reason for vagrancy or loitering in public places is because they don't like the feel at home. Yan. Yung condition sa bahay, ayaw nila. Maybe because of feeble-mindedness. Yan. Siguro na-attract na sila sa mga material things, which of course, the family cannot really sustain each one of those. And nainis sila sa kanilang magulang kasi hindi makaprovide. So, they will just wander away from home para maiwasan yung pinagsasabi ng kanilang mga magulang. Also, there are some other underlying factors for vagrancy, which is misdirection of their love for something, or misdirection for the perception that life is an adventure. Yan. Life is actually a marathon. It's not a sprint. Yan. So, when they are misdirected for their love for adventure, gusto nila araw-araw somehow adventure. Well, even if it is their own choice, they needed to be guided that love is a marathon. Hindi to pabilisan sa mundo. Life is full of challenges, and each of those challenges happens for a reason. Yan. So, also, one of those factors which juvenile delinquents can show delinquent behavior, emotional disorders. Yan. Jealousy. Yan. Or somehow it is also termed as being spiteful of others, or they are much others. Yan. Siguro yung ibang kabataan, meron silang mga kagamitan na wala naman yung ibang bata. yung ibang pamilya, and especially other children would want to have those to the point that they would want to attain those same luxuries immediately. Yan, to the point that they would steal things or would inflict violence to others, and then they would get those things, those luxuries. Yan, jealousy. Yan. Also, temper tantrums. So this temper tantrums is not just limited to those middle class or even lower class families, but somehow in the modern state of a family, yung tantrums nandun rin sa mga pamilyang may kaya. Siguro yung children nila nagiging spoiled. Yan. Siguro bilmoko na yung kanilang mga bata. Yan. Kahit ano na gusto ng bata, binibili nila. Whether it is useful or not. And if the parents cannot provide those, the children would manifest tantrums. Temper tantrums. Na wala gipalitan o dulaan sa mall. Na magligid-ligid na sa mall. Na muhilak nagkusog sa mall. Yan. Somehow, those families which are wealthy or capable, because they have the purchasing power, they could spoil their children. Pero of course, yung mga batang nasa pamilya ng middle class to lower class, hindi naman sila masaspoil kasi walang purchasing power yung mga magulang. But somehow, those children can have temper tantrums because basically they know the situation that their parents could not provide those luxuries, and much more, they cannot even buy those lesser amount na luxuries. Maiinis sila sa kanilang mga magulang. So here are the indicators of a normal and abnormal adolescence at even in your period today, 20, 21 years old. Yan. It is somehow the end part of adolescence, the start of early adulthood. Yan, para sa atin. So there are indicators of being on a normal course of moral development. Yan. This is somehow imperfectly normal. Yan. Kumbaga, this is just the regular challenges, regular behavior which is somehow anticipated for those children under the adolescent period. Yan. Number one, obsessive concern for bodily appearance. Yan. Yung masyadong conceited siguro sa kanilang bodily appearance. Yan. Yung marami silang na-observe sa kanilang body to the point that it is somehow borderline obsessive. O yung may compulsion sila na baguhin yung kanilang mga itsura o yung kanilang, sabi natin, mga hairstyles nila on that stage. Yan. So that's normal. That is one of those imperfections na somehow normal lang for adolescents. Next is fear of abandonment expressed as an assertion of independence. Yan. So marami sa mga kabataan, especially in Philippines or even in other countries like United States, yung mga kabataan around 18 years old when they reach the age of majority or legality, yan, 18 years old, 21 years old, mamugos na ng mga adolescents na mahimong independent from their families. But deep inside, that assertion of independence is actually a reaction of fearing abandonment. Yan. So they still fear that they would be abandoned or they would be alone in this world. Yan. Kumbaga, it is an opposite reaction of what they really wanted deeply. But there are some others, as an exemption to every rule, they would assert independence because they think that they are already capable of having what we call responsibility to themselves or their actions. Responsibility. Some of them have that desire to be different, yung ayaw nila matulad sa mga nauna sa kanila. They want to correct those mistakes. They would assert independence in order for them to be different from what is expected to them. Yan. Also, it is still normal that for children in the adolescent period, even in early adulthood period, yan, the 20s, yan, yung sexual desire and manipulativeness. Yan. So, commonly, sexual desires, because of the already developing reproductive system ng both genders, is already in full bloom. Yung ability to conceive a child for women is already in there. Yan. Dahil meron ng sexual desire na pinapakita, then there will be other actions which are attributed to those. One of them is manipulativeness, especially to those adolescents who are in a relationship. Yan. May mga babae or lalaki during the adolescent period na merong obsession sa pagiging manipulative sa kanilang mga karelasyon. Yan. That's just normal but somehow it must be corrected. Yung manipulativeness kasi during adolescent period is borderline obsessive. Yan. Lahat na lang ng gawin ng lalaki or lahat na lang ng gawin ng babae na partner, eh, kailangang ma-monitor nung partner na either lalaki or babae. Somehow there is a choking hazard. Yan. Yung manipulation ng isa towards another. Because they think that the others or the other person, the other half, because they want that person, they don't want that person to have so much attention to other people. And that's the reason why they manipulate their partners. And it is very dangerous na yung manipulativeness from the adolescent period would carry on up until adult stage or adulthood. Kasi yung mga adult partners, yan. For example, mag-asawa na sila on yan, early 30s, adulthood, 40s. Once they show that certain manipulativeness towards their partners, towards their other half, it could be attributed na yung kanilang manipulativeness was not controlled or was not corrected during the early 20s or even sa adolescent period. They might have exes or partners when they were still in high school or college. Pero yung manipulativeness nila noon, eh hindi nila na-correct or hindi man lang na-minimize. Because of intense sexual desire, they resort to manipulativeness. Once it's not controlled or minimized, then it would continue up until adult stage. And because of manipulativeness, they might commit physical acts towards their partners. Siguro sa sobrang selos, na dapato na nila ilang partners, na or they would inflict much severe violence. Also, it is somehow normal sa development ng mga adolescents yung wanting to be like other races or cultures. Yan. For example, sa generation ngayon, yung gusto na maging Koreano or Amerikano. Just go, what the hell? If you're not proud of your own race, then it is somehow an effect of media, an effect of the environment. Yan. There's nothing wrong with it, but it somehow needs to be corrected before it becomes uncontrollable, especially during adulthood. Yan, walang problema kung gusto mo maging Koreano. Magbihis ka na maging Koreano. Yan. You look like one or even other races. But somehow you need to control it because somehow there would be a time that reality would hit you back. Yan. For example, yung great example niyan tanda na si Marlo, si Sanderford. He publicly documented yung proseso niya sa pagkaroon ng surgery. That is plastic surgery. So, yung desire niya na makorek yung facial features niya and to adapt a different culture away from the culture in which he was originally indoctrined to is somehow normal, but because of his obsession to it, his intense desire to it, it becomes borderline obsessive. Yan. To the point na sa tingin ng mga tao ngayon, halos lahat ng kanyang ginagawa is a matter of publicity na lang. 'Di ba? Dati si Marlo naging Sanderford. Sino bang anak magpangalan sa kanilang anak ng Sanderford? Na Sando na sakyanan. Anyway, so that is being normal somehow, but it needs to be controlled before it reaches third stage. Yan, mid-20s, early 30s. Yan. Because once it is not controlled, you might not have a chance to control it again. Sunod, persistent wisecracking. Yan, yung mga witty comments, yan, yung pagiging pilosopo. Well, still needs to be limited. Yung wisecracking o yung pagiging pilosopo, yung mga witty comments, you need to limit it, yung humor na tinatawag. It's nothing wrong, but it would be wrong if it is already hurting others. And it is already annoying when you do it every time. Every time you have a chance, you just wisecrack. Yan. Nagiging pilosopo ka na lang kung may chance. But that is also wrong. It would be uncontrollable. It would become a habit if you didn't control it yourself. Yan. Nasa huli ang pagsisisi. Next, obsessive desire for success and recognition. Yan. Best example of this, si Michael Jordan. Kung nakita nyo sa kanyang Last Dance, yung nasa Netflix, because he was jealous of his brother, yun si Larry, yan. Because his father does always applaud his brother, even in the simple things, it become or it became personal para kay Michael. He became somehow obsessive for that recognition and to be recognized by his father. Especially nung high school siya na kung saan tinanggihan siya sa team, he became much more obsessive with success and recognition that he made those people pay for the rest of their lives. Yan. Kung nakita nyo sa Last Dance, he was very intense. Yan. He would somehow challenge others, and because of his supreme confidence, because of his skill, nadala na doon yung obsession for being successful. Well, it resulted him 6 championships, but also he's known to be yung mga trash talkers. He wanted to destroy his opponents. Yung term niya, he wanted to murder his opponents because he really wanted to win. Yan. There are relationships, there are friends na nawalan niya because of his obsession to win. Yan. It is a double-edged sword. Okay? So, it's still normal, but yung nakita natin kay Michael Jordan, once you carry it on until adulthood, It might make you or break you. Next is lack of self-identity or distinct self-respect, characterized by abuse to yourself. Yan. Palate ka na lang umiinom. Yan. Or yung personal hygiene mo is already somehow became secondary. So it is normal, but it's needed for it to be controlled immediately. People don't want to see a person who has a lack of self-respect. Respeto sa katawan, respeto sa sarili. Yan. It is also normal for adolescents during that period na yung kanilang moral development in terms of their self-identity is questioned. Yan. Kung sino ba talaga sila. They will also resort to exploring somehow, different ways of life. Yan. There's no offense. Merong iba na sasabing gay sila, sasabing lesbian sila, or even would enter gay relationships or lesbian relationships to really know what is really yung sarili nila. Who am I? Kumbaga, ika nga ni Jackie Chan. So, because they resort to those actions, they resort to those decisions, it is somehow a characteristic of lacking self-identity, which must be somehow established before adulthood. It's not really a pressure dapat para sa adolescents yung self-identity. Pero ang dapat mangyari kasi sa self-adolescents, according to researchers, is that they must develop their principles. Yung tamang prinsipyo. Self-identity is part of it, but you must not get ahead of yourselves. Yan. I know some of you are into a lesbian relationship, in a gay relationship. Yan. But somehow, you need to develop principles which are better. I'm not saying that is wrong, pero yung sinasabi ko is that it is okay to indulge to those, but as long as your principles involve having peace with others and not committing crimes, not committing deviant behaviors which are somehow so grave or wrong, then there's nothing wrong. Maraming tao na siguro nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang pressure sa buhay, they would resort to different decisions. Well, that's their decision. It's a free world. You can do what you want. But you must not also forget that for every decision, there's always somehow another challenge that would need to be overcome. Yan. Self-identity must be established. Whether you're gay, whether you're a lesbian, whether you are any other, that's not a problem. As long as you can live with others harmoniously, hindi mo inaapakan yung iba, you don't oppress them, then there's nothing wrong. Yan. Pero yung gusto ko lang talaga i-highlight is not really self-identity or yung lack of self-identity, but yung pagkakaroon ng obsession, not really for the desire of success. Everyone wanted to be successful. Everyone wanted that recognition to them. Pero yung obsession to some things, like for example, obsession sa siguro sexual desire or obsession to material things, yun ang dapat mabawasan. There's nothing wrong with acquiring material things as long as it is not obsessive, as long as it is not really somehow reckless, okay lang. The thing is, I want to highlight obsession as somehow a result of somehow pagiging glutton. Yan. Or greed. Yan. It's perfectly described by greed. Your obsession would somehow result into intense greed. Okay? Also, it is still somehow normal especially for adolescents, that there are emotional extremes, especially when handling criticism. May mga female adolescents who, once they heard about criticism to them, then somehow yung sinasabi ng iba is overreaction nila. Well, that's normal. It is normal. Sensitivity to criticism, whether you're a female or male, yan. Merong iba na magre-react talaga with regards to criticism against them. Nothing wrong. But you need to control it. Yan. There would be times, especially before we became adults, that the criticisms we face, it is either we take them or we need to change them. Criticisms in life is somehow a constant figure. Kailangan lang natin gawin is patunayan natin. You need to better walk the talk. Yan. Kasi yung mga nagkikriticize sa isang tao, the reasons for criticism kasi it can be a result of jealousy or it is somehow a result of being ridiculous. Kinikriticize ka siguro dahil yung taong yon is jealous of your achievements. Or either, kinikriticize ka nila, it's because they think of you as somehow a lower mammal. Ayan. Okay? So, all of those, it's somehow considered normal for adolescents. But when you reach adulthood, once it becomes borderline obsessive, then it's not good. It's not good when you become obsessive to things. Okay? So next, indicators of being on an abnormal course of development. Yan. So please take note of this. Napakarami nito. There are 7 of them and somehow there's still more which is not described in this uh, document. Napakarami sa mundo. It can be considered abnormal if yung impulses ninyo would gain the better of you. Kumbaga, yung mga bagay na gusto mo, ibibilhin mo na lang agad. Impulsivity. Yan. Somehow, it can be an emotional disturbance or an emotional disorder. Yan. Imbis na pag-isipan mo yung pros and cons, bilhin mo na lang. Yan. Kung ayaw mo, ibenta mo, itapon mo. That's very dangerous. Next is, it is considered abnormal if a person is unmoved by overtures of help and harms helpers, especially by those children who grew up with wealthy families. They would somehow reject help because they think that they are perfect themselves. It's because they have money or they are wealthy. There are some others who reject helping because of one word. Yan. Yan. Pride. May mga tao na tinatanggihan yung pagtulong ng iba dahil sa lumalaki nilang pride. Yan. They somehow correlated with their thinking of themselves or highly thinking of themselves as somehow capable of anything. Well, again, there's no man who is an island. Walang tao na nabubuhay para sa sarili lamang. There would be instances in which you really need help. No one man can do it alone, even if you are afraid that your pride would be lost, yung dignidad mo somehow mababawasan, but there would be instances in life in which the problem or the challenge is so great that you need help from others. And once you turn down all those help, somehow it becomes abnormal. And once you carry it on until adulthood, it's very dangerous. Next is, it is abnormal when an individual shows no loyalty, especially to other adolescents. Yan. So, especially to males, dapat dito sa adolescent period, we are already creating that principle of being a man of our word. Yan. Or having, somehow, in general, loyalty, especially to what is correct. Yan. For example, yung mga kaibigan mo, di ba? Your friends, especially early childhood or even up to adolescent period, loyalty is one thing that is characterized by your friendship. And it is very important that loyalty to other adolescents must be manifested. If you don't show any of those, then somehow, if it is not controlled, you would not show any loyalty to other adults as you grow old. Yan. Also, there are other behaviors which is called abnormal somehow if those words are inconsistent with feelings. Yan. Mahal mo siya pero hindi mo ginagawa. Yan. Even up until now, merong mga ganyan. Nasa relasyon pero yung sinasabi nila eh hanggang sabi na lang. Yan. May ibang guilty, may ibang hindi. Yan. Language is strange with humor missing. May ibang tao, may ibang adults who somehow throughout their life nawawala na yung humor or yung somehow pagiging masayahin. The color of life. Life is better with color, ika nga. So, please, if it is still early, try to have humor in life. Huwag mong tingnan yung buhay na somehow puro challenge na lang. Yan. Because life is like climbing a mountain. As you climb up to the mountain, you will encounter challenges, problems, you will encounter even something funny. But once you're on the top, it's lonely at the top. But even if you're at the top, you can still look down and remember all those things, whether they are bad or good, and remember them, reminisce them. Yan. So, again, life is happier when there is color. And again, especially yung mga nasa relationship ngayon, words are inconsistent with feelings. May iba dyan na kala nila mahal pero basically infatuation lang. Yeah, physically you like them but deeper kulang. Okay? Also, there are some others who claims to have been always the first to do something. So yan. Kumbaga credit grabber. Again, when you're an adolescent, basically you're in school. So when you do projects, when you do activities with others, if it is not an individual project, then might as well consider the efforts of others. Yan. Because when you consider the efforts of others, they would somehow feel that they are part of it. Hindi sila ma-outcast, hindi sila manghinayang na nagtulong sila or tumulong sila. So, it is better that it is done as a group than it is done by a one-man show. Di ba? It's like playing basketball. You cannot credit one man for everything. Eh, paano na lang yung iba? Eh, lahat naman yan nag-effort, di ba? Yan. Next, pathological lying for no good reason. Yung palagi nang nagsisinungaling. For example, mga adolescents na nagda-drive na ng sasakyan even underage. Tapos pag mahuli, before yan iiyak, tatawag yan ng kung sino bang tito nila, kung sinong kakilala nila. Na, there's some others Kung wala silang kakilala, they would lie. At yung pagsisinungaling nila is pathological or kumbaga, natural na sa kanila. Walang pagdadalawang isip. And the reasons are basically no good at all. So yun, that's considered an abnormal course. Also, there are some others na superficially charming. Yung sa panlabas, napaka-attractive, napaka-charming. Pero deep inside, because siguro of emotional disturbances or wrong perceptions, they're unable to maintain intimate and long-term relationships. When I say intimate, yung beyond physical. Kasi kung physical lang yan na kagustuhan, yung physical na attraction, that's just infatuation. But when you really care for others, whether you are superficially charming or not, as long as those relationships you maintain are true and real relationships, then it is somehow against abnormal course of development. Merong iba na napaka-attractive pero hindi maka-maintain ng totoo at matagal na mga relationships. It is not just relationships na yung romantic, but yung relationships nyo sa ibang tao, yung pakikitungo. Okay? Next, indicators of being an at-risk youth. Yan. Nandito, frequent absenteeism. Yan. Nagiging truant na or there is truancy. Yung palating nasususpend. He's at risk of being exposed to wrong perceptions, wrong actions, or at risk of being influenced with wrong peers. Yan. Palating nag-absent, palating nasususpend, or even parating na lilate. Yan. Academic performance below grade level or repeating a grade level. Actually, lahat ng mga umulit ng level, umulit ng grade, umulit ng year, it is actually really a blow to the ego. Yan. Or yung kumpiyansa nawala. Diminished yung confidence. But still, even if that happens, hindi mo naman gusto na isang balakid lang makatalo sa'yo. You need to go back at it. Yan. Even if you repeated a level, you repeated a subject, hindi mo naman gusto na yan lang ang makakatalo sa'yo. Again, as an advice to all, you are better than that. This is oppositional stance towards authority. Every time na makakakita ng police or makakakita ng authority, yan, para nandidiri. O yung parang lalaban. Also, there are other indicators which involves drug or alcohol involvement, especially to those adolescent youth. They might use drugs or alcohol as an escape route to the problems they face or the problems they are encountering. Whether they be personal or family problems, they use these vices, whether illegal drugs or alcohol, mainly as an escape route or an escape valve para pansamantala mawala yung kanilang problema. But even if you consume how many bottles, ilang case ba yung maubos mo, ilang droga pa bang hihit-hitin mo, at the end of the day, pag nahimasmasan ka, babalik ang realidad. Pinapatagal mo na lang yung problema mo if you're using those. So, which would you choose? Patagalin ang problema? Pansamantalang mawawala pero patagalin? Or padaliin mo yung problema? You face it immediately. Yan. So, that's not a choice for me to take para sa inyo. It's a choice you take for yourself. Also, We'll go here, being a latchkey child or a child lacking adult supervision. If a child does not have any adult supervision or correct or even right adult supervision, he might grow up to being a loner. He might grow up to developing criminal behavior. Being a latchkey child is a dangerous situation because, of course, every child requires guidance. And if they are not given the right amount of adult supervision, they might develop criminal behavior and they might also have no control with regards to the pleasures of the world. So, whether they like something or not, if they cannot achieve it, they would resort to violence or crimes. And the main reason, siguro, the lack of adult supervision. Kanang mugiya sa ila kung unsay tama ug unsay mali. Mugiya sa ila kung unsay buhaton nila. It's because those adults have been there and done that. Also, one of those indicators of being an at-risk youth is from those broken families or those coming from foster homes. Kasi for example, dito sa foster homes, children who belongs to a foster home would really want to know who are their biological parents. Sana ba sila? He needed those. He needed someone na kadugo niya naturally to guide him. And if kung single parent, it's nothing wrong being a single in a single parent family, but because you are one man down, then naturally, hahanapan ng bata kung saan yung nawalang bahagi ng pamilya. Okay? So, it is very important. Please take note of those. It might come out sa exam. Next is factors affecting the development of juvenile delinquency. So, there are different factors. Yan. So, let me highlight first, family. Family is the basic unit of society. Dito natin una natututunan yung konsepto sa buhay. And even as we grow old, as long as there is a family, there are people which you can lean on even at the worst times. Hindi lang sa pag-develop sa'yo nung bata ka, even as we grow old, even as we accumulate experiences with life, andyan sila. Whether you do something good or bad, hopefully, they're there to guide you and to mold you. Sila yung primary institution, primary social group na kung saan na-encounter natin ang mga magaganda at masamang mangyayari at yung magtuturo sa atin, especially the parents. Because the reason for this is because family provides that unconditional emotional support, that unconditional emotional security, especially to its members. So, we'll fast forward to family structure. Yan. Two reasons two reasons that families are traditionally knit together. Yan. Or there are two reasons in which merong mga members ng family na somehow nawawalan ng attention and might resort to delinquent behavior. First is family size. Pag mas maraming anak, mas less ang nag-accumulate or mas less yung attention sa bawat anak. It's not a constant. Merong mga malalaking pamilya na kudos to their parents kahit marami yung anak nila na-maintain nila ng equal or nung tamang attention sa bawat anak. But most of it, especially to those families with poor conditions, yung attention na kinakailangan mula sa pagkabata depleted or nawawala. So it is one factor in which family size will be somehow an attributing factor to developing delinquent behavior by youth. Also, one of those, according to family structure, is yung child's birth order. There are families in which ang mas nagkakaroon ng attention, yung bunso. There are some other families na yung nagkakaroon ng majority ng attention, the elder or yung panganay. Yan. There are some other families na dahil yung bunso nila ang nagkakaroon ng mas maraming attention, it's because dahil meron silang mga panganay, yung kanilang experience from raising children would somehow be much more better when giving attention to the youngest. Yan. And because merong mga elder siblings, mas nakakatandang kuya at ate, it would be much easier for the parents to guide kay bunso. Yan. Another factor of the family, the relations between parents and children. Yan. Aside from genetic factors, there are other emotional or psychological factors which can affect the predominance or yung susceptibility of being a child at risk and also to being a child who would commit delinquent behavior. First is if a child experiences severe family rejection, then he might resort to delinquent behavior. Maglalayas yan. Gagawali para makakuha ng attention or masatisfy yung gusto. Yan. So according to John Bowlby, even a short absence on the part of the mother could have deleterious effects on the psychic well-being ng bata. Yan. So a child who is deprived of his mother goes through three phases. First is, he would protest. Yan. Protest to the parent. Iiyak yan, magsisigaw yan. Yan. For example, hanggang ngayon, meron pa ring mga kabataan na akala mo responsable na pero pag natatakot or nagugulat, sinong unang tatawagan? Mama. Yan. So that is somehow a reflex na ginagawa ng kabataan once they are confronted with something shocking or something somehow na yung fear nila. Yan. As a sign of protest. It shows panic. And of course, dahil tinawag nila or sinigaw nila yung mama, yan. It is somehow wanting the parent. Even though, initially, the child is rejected. Yan. That is best characterized or exemplified yung early stages of going to school ng bata. Yan. Yung first day ng pagpasok niya sa paaralan. May mga bata na kahit pinapaaral na during the first day of class, naturally, they would not leave their parents. Hawakan si mama, iiyak na, magligid-ligid pa na, masyagit pa na, di nagganahan ma-separate sa iyang parent, especially the mother. Next, despair. So, this is also characterized sa early childhood. Yan. Especially nung pagiging baby pa, even before going to school. Yan. Pag hindi binibigyan ng somehow care ng mother or ng parent, yan. Hindi lang yan siya iiyak at magsisigaw. Then, because of despair from the attention of the parent, na magsakta na siya sa iyang thumb, na mangita na nagdudo in order to satisfy. Okay? Next is detachment. Child loses interest in parents and is not concerned whether they are there or not. Unfortunately, this is a truth, especially when the child has his own life. Yan, may sarili na siyang pamilya at yung mga nagpalaki sa kanya, somehow nalilimutan na niya. Especially in countries like the United States, once you're already capable of living on your own, taking care of your own, then you get out of the house. And somehow, even if there's detachment, good thing dito sa Pilipinas, that detachment of a child from his biological family is not really affecting the relationship of most Filipino families. Because even if the child has his own family, the child still has concern and interest on the well being of his or her parents. Next is discipline in the house. Yan. So there are different styles in which parents discipline their children. Yan. So there are also parents who discipline their children harshly, and of course, it's wrong. There are also parents who behave or discipline their children in a graduated or yung staggering na styles. Kumbaga, medyo hindi pa masyadong harsh yung early stages ng disciplining. Then once they grow older, it becomes more harsh. Still, it is not really correct. Yan. And of course, it depends on also on the behavior that the child develops. There are children who are difficult to discipline and requires the parents to shout to the top of their lungs para lang makinig yung bata. Yan. And it requires that the parents show command and show respect para yung mga bata sumunod sa utos ng magulang. So there are three types of home in general that breeds three types of behavior. Yan. First, a loving, friendly, and just home breeds conforming behavior. That's the ideal setting. Next, even though there's a loving, friendly home, pero liberal and open-minded, it can create critical behavior. Kasi nagkakaroon ng freedom, malaking freedom yung bata even at a younger stage. Yan. But a loveless, lonely, and problematic home breeds deviant behavior. So please take note of those. Yan. Because the child does not have the right amount of attention, does not have that recognition from the family, and is not provided with even the basic needs, the child would need to satisfy himself. And soon he will develop deviant behavior. Okay, next. Let's proceed to family models. First is the corporate model. Yan. The father is the CEO, mother is the COO. Kung saan yung mother, siya ang nag-implement ng mga plano ni CEO, ni Papa. Yung mga policies niya. And also, si nanay yung nagmamanage ng staff, which are the children. Yan. Parang corporation lang. Yan. So those staff have privileges and responsibilities to each other based on seniority. So of course, yung panganay, mas malaking responsibilidad compared kay bunso. And of course, because the father's the CEO, he makes the most, he earns the most, and has the final word or the final word on decisions within the corporate family. Siya yung kumbaga the brainchild of the corporate model. Okay, so next is the team model ng family. So, it is basically the same with sports teams kung saan yung father yung head or yung head coach, the mother is the head trainer, and also the cheerleader. While the children are the players, yan. Pero, the common issue with the team model, there is a predominance or merong signs of anxiety. Yan. And of course, they are much restricted because there are rules that are set and they need to follow those rules strictly. And of course, at the same time, they must maintain their shape in conformity. So medyo physical and also kung mga competitive sa academics, yung mga children dito binababad ng parents to somehow severe studying. Yan. In conformity with the rules and regulations ng team. Okay? So that is in conformity with the team in order for them to win it all. Kasi sa team model, competition is very much the name of the game. Winning is everything. Next is the military model. Yeah. Of course, the father is the general kasi patriarchal ang society primarily. Yung mother, yung head duty guard. Yan. And also, she double duties as the nurse corps. Yan. Physical or emotional na sickness, siya ang nag-cure. The father is the general. Siya yung nagli-lead sa mga grunts o yung mga soldato. Those are the kids. So, kung sino man sa kanyang mga sundalo or kung sino man sa mga anak ang unruly o yung mga bata na kumakomit ng acts which are not in conformity with the family, then those children are somehow punished, sent to a stockade. And insubordinate wives, yung mga wives na hindi sumusunod sa general or yung sa father, is at risk of being discharged. Or somehow, kung sa common term, they might be annulled or divorced or separated. And of course, because it's a military model, punishment is quick and of course somehow may some characteristic of being sadists, yan, sadistic, because the main reason is that it is for character formation. Yan. No ifs and buts. They must always adhere to discipline. This is common to those families in which yung either parent, especially the father, is from the military. Yan. So ito yung commonly pinapairal na family model. Next is boarding school model. Somehow like a boarding school. Yan. Father is yung rector or yung head. Yan, headmaster. The father is the one in charge of training those children into how a school works. While the mother is the dorm counselor who oversees the emotion, who oversees the health and bedwetting ng children. Yan. Siya yung basically nagmo-monitor ng every movement ng child. And the children are those dutiful students kung saan ang ginagawa na lang ng parents dahil sumusunod naman sila, they're equally capable, the parents have nothing left to learn and just teaches and tests the children successively. That is in the boarding school model. Next is theatrical model. The father is the producer and plays the role of the father. Yan. The mother is the stage manager. Siya, kumbaga siya yung nagme-makeup, siya yung nag-aalaga, siya yung parang PA. And job double duties as the stage manager. Yan. So, the same lang, mother talaga ang role. Well, the stagehands or yung mga actors are the children. Yan. They play the role of the boys and girls. The thing with the theatrical model, wala nang predetermined lines. Yan. Because each role that the members play are already the stereotypes and dapat alam na nila yung dapat gawin nila. Yan. So wala nang director. There's just the producer. Yan. Yan yung father. Okay? So those are the five family models, yung five family models with regards to the types of family um, atmosphere, especially inside the house. Next is the quality of home. Yan. So, yung quality or yung atmosphere sa loob ng bahay, it can be attributed to positive attributes by the parents. Yan. If they're happily married, they have good relationship with the whole family. Yan. They have strong family cohesiveness. Commonly, ang strong family cohesiveness is not just good relationships with each other, but also strong faith kay God, kay Allah, or kung sino man. They have strong religious ties. Those are somehow the keys of having a good or great quality of home. But there are some other homes, there are some other families in which may complaints, merong mga inconsistencies which could result in delinquency or delinquent behaviors committed by the child. First, yan, broken home. The child would be somehow having a difficulty adjusting to the styles of the mother if she is alone and the father if he is alone, di ba? Somehow merong inconsistency sa kanyang pagdidisiplina. Yan. It does not only include those parents who are separated, but also those parents na hindi naman separated pero nagiging irresponsible towards their children. Yung kumbaga wala nang pakihalo sa kanilang mga anak. That's still part of a broken home. Why? Because there's already some of the distant relationship between the parents and the children. Siguro yung parents, yan, wala masyadong panahon sa bahay. So the children experience constant quarreling at home against their siblings. Somehow there are no parents or walang mga magulang to intervene between those quarrels. And because of broken homes, it is one of those big factors which increases the risk of deviant behavior developing to their children. The next is single parent families. Nothing against, but majority of these type of families are products of divorce or separation. Yan. So yung bata would somehow, even if it is not wanted, he would be sharing the strains or would be sharing the problem with the parents. Because those relationships between the parents are already not good before the separation. At yung nagsasuffer are the children. And because of those, siguro, dahil toxic na sa bahay, they will not really want to go home or meet with either parent. They would resort to either being with their peers or being into deviant behavior. Okay? So, I will end my discussion on that part. On the next recorded session, I would start with discussing parenting styles. Yan. So, that is all for today. Thank you for listening. and have a great day to all of you.